Leung. And so I'll read you the title poem, and I'll start with the Chinese version just a little bit to give you a feel of it. 火鸟不哭，传说中有只鸟儿，它飞入火里，化成了灰。鸟儿，鸟儿，你为何绝望如此，纵身火海呢？ Don't cry, Phoenix. Legend has it that there's a bird. She flew into a sea of flames and burned to ashes. Dear Phoenix, oh Phoenix, what drove you to despair, to throw yourself into the flaming sea? Between the heavens and the earth, 1,000 winds are whispering. The universe is filled with prayers for the bird. All living beings are devoted to her. Somewhere afar, a certain silky smooth shaft of light appears. It's a slim bird struggling to stretch out, to rise. Tears stream from the corners of her eyes. She strives to be rid of the nightmares of her past. Legend has it that there's a bird. She flew into a sea of flames and burned to ashes. Dear Phoenix, oh Phoenix, what drove you to despair, to throw yourself into the flaming sea? Between the heavens and the earth, 1,000 winds are whispering. The universe is filled with prayers for the bird. All living beings are devoted to her. Somewhere afar, the silky smooth shaft of light simmers. That slim bird continues to flap so hard, her tears evaporate. She fights on and liberates herself from the sea of flames. Proudly, she spreads her wings and soars into the air, like a brand new leaf in a cherry tree forest. She enjoys her solitude amidst the throng, glorying in the beauty of her rebirth. Yeah, so when I think of a poet's collection, I think of a hero's journey in mythology. Like the hero, the poet is called to an adventure that involves crossing the threshold, taking up battles, journeying to explore the uncomfortable and unresolvable truths. Then the poet hero returns to tell her stories that deepen our lives and enriches our societies. The adventurous spirit is the key. Courage is the most important of all ventures, said Maya Angelou, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. So a poetry collection should dare to go to new places and take us there, using the most concise, expressive, moving, and memorable way of articulation. And by reading or listening, the receiver becomes the hero who may answer her calls to adventure and returns to tell her stories. Right. So Don't Cry Phoenix includes 5 sections or themes: individual, love, friendship, family, and society. They are pretty much in the order of my writing. I lived a solitary life before, working in the corporate world where I excelled but didn't belong. I worked hard for it, mainly to prove that I was capable to my family. But the external achievements could never fill the void of self-validation. So I started to look back and write about my journey. One after another, the poems came tumbling out. They helped me to build my self-esteem, self-love. My inner world expanded, and so I was able to examine the roles of love, friendship, family, and society played in my life. This collection contains 10 years of my work. In the end, my individual life reflects the life of my society as it was being violated. As an author, poet, I felt that I had the responsibility to bear witness and give voice to the voiceless. Indifference is cruelty. I began writing Phoenix when I was 35. During that year, I earned a room of one's own to call Virginia Woolf, my first apartment, and could afford to look back, both financially and mentally. Like Woolf, I was suicidal once and attempted a few times when I was 15. So the book recorded my journey from a deeply depressive teenager to a liberated, independent woman who realized her dreams and cared for others. My friends Adeline and Noel were among my early readers. As they loved my work, I invited them to create something for the book, and they did. Adeline composed tunes and Noel painted. So the book comes with a CD of 10 songs and 8 paintings, all original. Together, we transformed tragedies into arts. And so the collection as a whole celebrates our common humanity as it creates a platform for the readers, listeners' sorrows to meet mine. And out of it comes joy and hope. We all have been wounded by life. And to me, healing is about coming to terms with things, accepting them as they are, and not wishing to change the past. So the themes of the poems evolved as I learned to embrace my experiences and see them as indisputable gifts of my existence, something that I could share with the rest of the world. Yeah. So the experience of collaborating on this, on creating the CD was an epic journey. First, I had no musical training at all, and I hadn't listened to much music also. So working with Adeline, a piano teacher and an absolute music lover, as well as Isabel, a professional musician who has produced numerous records for professional singers, and Isabel's recording team, the experienced sound engineers, pushed me beyond my limits. The first song on the CD, At Dawn, was my first song during the recording process. It took Isabel and her team 6 hours to get my singing right and be satisfied with the recording. Whereas it only took Adeline 2 hours to get her first one done. I felt like a piece of big baggage to them, but they kept encouraging me. And so I used the whole Chinese New Year holiday of 2020, a recording break, to listen to the melodies of my last 2 songs over and over again and practice singing them 100 times, literally. And so during our final recording, I got into the flow. Instead of 6 hours, it took me only 2.5 hours to perfect each. On that last day of our recording, when I managed to complete the remaining 2 songs much quicker than expected, Isabel ran from the control panel and reached me as I stepped off the microphone. With misty eyes, she exclaimed, "How did you do that?" I stared at her blankly, too shocked to reply, as I hadn't seen her being so emotional before. She explained that it was very unusual for a grown-up without any musical background to have such fast and immense improvement. Hitting the key, getting the tune and the rhythm right. I believe it had to do with tenacity and the power of our subconscious mind. They do wonders. As I grew up in China, the image of phoenix and dragon in pairs were ubiquitous. They represented power and prosperity. Until I was a teenager in Hong Kong, I learned about Greek mythology and that the phoenix symbolized rebirth. After I went away from home when I was 15, went to Taiwan and returned to Hong Kong at 18, it felt like my old self was dead. And so when I started writing about my new life and that I had rebuilt, the concept of the phoenix spoke to me loud and clear. But the image of the phoenix, either in Chinese culture or in mythology, is too grand and intimidating. I decided to recreate it and make it my own. So rather than using the two official Chinese characters of the phoenix, I adopted a new term, which means a firm bird. It felt lighter, softer, and related to China's long, heavy history. Furthermore, I used "don't cry" in the title for two reasons. One is to humanize or demystify the bird. Another is because crying suggests water, and water is the opposite of fire. To put two conflicting elements together alludes to yin, yang, the Chinese philosophy of harmony. This way, my firm bird is unburdened yet rooted, and with that, she could rise from her ashes and take off with my ideas, my dreams, flying high, reaching far and beyond. To keep an observant eye on our inner and outer worlds. Know thyself, according to legend, was carved into stone at the entrance of Apollo's temple at Delphi in Greece. So one way of achieving it is to write down things that concern you. You will know your thoughts better when you put them in words, something you can see vividly. As your writing grows, you can cut the lines or stanzas up, shove them around, and see what happens. Poetic language and forms are experiential. They try to convey experience with the fullness and immediacy we actually feel in our lives. So to live sensitively or mindfully allows us to embrace our experiences fully, and when we condense our experiences into words, designed to be read, sung, and listened to, we create poetry. Be courageous. First, you need to declare battles with your inner voice that keeps telling you that you will never be good enough. To win this wars, you write what you can every day. As time goes by, your improvement will speak for itself. And it's important to remind yourself why you want to write in a second language. For me, it's twofold. Writing in English gives me a new Western perspective to look at the events of my life. For example, in Chinese culture, running away from home, especially for a daughter, is shameful because she disgraces her family name. But from the Western perspective, it's an act of bravery that she takes up a hero's journey. This new perspective allowed me to write this poetry collection and my memoir, The Girl Who Dreamed. Another reason I write in English is because it liberates me, giving me the psyche distance to express myself freely. For instance, it's hard for me to say I love you in Chinese as it sounds cringy and tacky and out of our culture, but I have no problem voicing it in English. So to gain a broader perspective and an unrestrained expression, I will keep fighting off the fears that I will never be good enough. As long as you keep writing, you keep winning. I highly recommend the Chinese poet-writer Chao She-Qin. Chao is the author of The Dream of the Red Chamber. So Chao grew up in 18th century China, the Qianlong era. It was a critical period when Chinese culture began to decline. Chow inherited the great traditions of Chinese literature, poetry, lyric, novel, and drama. But in Dream, he broke free and created something new. Using his artistic hypersensitivity, he composed this epic poem. Dream captures the rise and fall of an epoch, the dwindling of a great tradition, the ephemeralness of wealth and rank and human life. Chow was homeless when he wrote this book. He sought shelter in a dilapidated shrine. It took him 10 years to write this epic poem, during which he sometimes couldn't even get a meal a day. People often laughed at him for scribbling all the time like a madman, but he persevered. Also, he didn't let the desolate decade turn him into a bitter man. Instead, he showed enormous empathy for the massive cast of characters in his masterpiece. Chao Shi-qing's courage, tremendous willpower, incredible humanity, and prodigious intellect make him a true inspiration for all. So I want to give a shout out to my fellow writers and all the creative artists in especially in Hong Kong, as they're still trying to make their voice heard in any way possible. So a big kudos there. And I also want to shout out to Mark Chip, who have been helping me since I started to write in English. And it means a lot to me to be able to express myself freely. Yeah, thank you.